Mandy and I welcome you back to The Chosen's blended harmony of the gospel. We are on day 17, part 3, the transfiguration of Jesus. We are in Matthew 17, starting with verse 1, the transfiguration of Jesus. About 6 days after this conversation, he took along Peter, James, and John and went up to a high mountain to pray and be alone. As he was praying, he was transfigured in front of them. The appearance of his face changed and shone like the sun. His clothes became dazzling, as white as light, extremely white, as no launderer on earth could whiten them. And I bet especially back then, without like bleach and all the washing machines we have now, it was probably hard to keep white things white back in those days. Suddenly, 2 men were talking with him, Moses and Elijah. They appeared in glory and were speaking of his departure, which he was about to accomplish in Jerusalem. Can you imagine how exciting that was? Wow! Peter and those with him were in a deep sleep, and when they became fully awake, they saw his glory and the 2 men who were standing with him. As the 2 men were departing from him, Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you want, I'll set up 3 shelters here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah," because he did not know what to say, since they were terrified. Peter never knows what to say, does he? He doesn't. While he was still speaking, suddenly a bright cloud covered them, and a voice from the cloud said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell face down and were terrified. Jesus came up, touched them, and said, "Get up, don't be afraid." When they looked up, they saw no one except Jesus alone. As they were coming down the mountain, Jesus commanded them, "Don't tell anyone about the vision until the Son of Man is raised from the dead." They kept this word to themselves, and at that time told no one what they had seen, questioning what rising from the dead meant. So the disciples asked him, "Why then do the scribes say that Elijah must come first?" "Elijah is coming and will restore everything," he replied. "But I tell you, Elijah has already come, and they didn't recognize him. On the contrary, they did whatever they pleased to him. In the same way, the Son of Man is going to suffer at their hands." Then the disciples understood that he had spoken to them about John the Baptist. I love this story, don't you? So he takes 3 of his closest disciples, Peter, James, and John, and they go up to a high mountain to pray. And he's praying, and he was transfigured in front of them, and his clothes became dazzling, as white as light, and there were 2 men suddenly talking with him, Moses and Elijah. It's so cool, I think, for Moses and Elijah to have this moment with Jesus, right? They've been in heaven forever. Jesus has been down on earth for about 33 years, and they're like, "Hey, we get to go visit Jesus today." I mean, heaven must have just erupted when God sent Moses and Elijah down. And Moses, from the Old Testament, he kind of represents the law, right? And then Elijah represents the prophets. So together, the law and the prophets, that's what the Old Testament is all about. But both of them, their whole goal, their whole lives was always just pointing to Jesus in the future. All the Old Testament is just pointing to the New Testament, where Jesus comes and fulfills a lot of those prophecies. So I just think that transfiguration is a great moment. And then Peter says, "Lord, it's good to be here. If you want, I'll set up 3 shelters here, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah," because he didn't know what to say because they were terrified. So first of all, I want to know, how did he know it was Moses and Elijah? Interesting, right? I mean, did they have like name tags on or what? Because there was no pictures back then of what Moses would have looked like, but he knew in his heart that it was Moses and Elijah that had come down. But then it's so funny. It says Peter didn't know what to say. He never knows what to say. Like, he is for sure foot in mouth all the time, but at least he's trying. But I think it's interesting when he says, "I'll build 3 shelters." You know, you think, why did he say that? I kind of feel like because he wanted to hang out there. It's a mountaintop experience. Have you ever had a mountaintop experience? Have you ever climbed a mountain? I have. That's really a mountaintop experience. But, you know, it's interesting. He's just kind of like, we want to stay here. This is great. You're glorified. You're bright. We got Moses, Elijah. He's like, I'll pitch some tents. We'll hang out here. We all want to hang out on the mountain. But Jesus didn't let them stay there, right? They had to go back down into the trenches and do more work for him in the kingdom. So it is nice when God gives us these mountaintop experiences, but remember, we can't stay there. The work is down in the valley. And then you have a voice saying, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." So God's kind of saying, Peter, stop talking about shelters. Listen to what Jesus is saying. And I think that's important for us too. We need to be listening to him. So I hope today, my friends, you've enjoyed this story about the Transfiguration. It's just a beautiful story, but your takeaways can be, Jesus is with us, and he is the Son of Man, and God glorified him to show the disciples that. But also, we can't stay up on those mountaintops, right? We have to get back down into the trenches. And then just like God audibly spoke from the cloud, he's speaking to us today. Listen to him. He's saying, listen to Jesus, listen to my Son, listen to the Bible, which is his word. So I hope today you enjoy mountaintops, but you make sure you come down, and also you are listening always to the word of God. He's speaking to you and to your heart. He loves you and has great plans for you and wants you to go out there and do some work for him today. So listen to him and have a great day. And we'll see you guys back here tomorrow. You can get your own copy of A Blended Harmony of the Gospels by The Chosen simply by going to thechosengifts.com. There you can find all kinds of wonderful merchandise to help build your faith this year. Be sure to check out their devotionals and their Bible studies. Have a blessed day.